So I get questions all the time about why I wrote this book, but also why I did a workshop, and what's this workshop all about that has continued to go now for 25 years since the book came out. And I realized that to me, right from the beginning, they served different purposes. I mean, most people think of a workshop, or I mean, I guess there are different kinds of workshops these days, but in the old days, it was just, kind of a lecture, and you learned from the lecture, and that was it. It was more like reading the book, but actually seeing and listening instead of reading the words. And what I realized was that this book, the whole idea of the 7 stages of money maturity, was about personal growth, was about becoming wise, was about becoming more practical, better functioning in the money world and in the world in general, in our relationships and in everything really, because they overlap so much. So I wanted to create a lesson for each of the stages, each of the 7 stages, that would give to the person who is there in the workshop the actual experience of each of those stages, and then the gradual unfolding, the experience of transformation that occurs as we move through the stages. So yeah, you can get that reading the book. I mean, you can get some of it anyway, and you get it in a contemplative kind of way, which is very valuable. But it's also, I mean, money is so much out there, and it's commercial, and it's relationship, and it's transactional. How wonderful to actually do the experiential aspects of money, to look at them, consider them, but then experience them, engaging with others. And for me, as you know, the money is a facilitator of personal transformation. It's I don't mean that as a positive or a negative. It's like the earth is a facilitator. The world around us is a facilitator. But it is so interwoven with our life that the ability to function well with it and have a healthy relationship with it, one where we feel at ease, where we feel knowledgeable, where we feel vigorous and vital, where we feel generous, and where we feel at any time a capacity to transform, feels pretty wonderful and pretty incredible. And I realized that it's one thing to read, and I'm a reader. I love to read and to contemplate in that way. And it's another thing to actually have the experience engaged with other people. So I wanted to give that experience. And the first workshops that I set up, mostly attended, and it was the idea was for consumers, for everybody. The 7 stages of money maturity. It's really about everybody. But and the first workshops I gave, because of my client base in Cambridge, were hugely psychologists. There were certainly money people, because I was already getting known in money circles, financial circles, and consumers. But soon what happened was that the financial world went, wow, this was long before behavioral finance, long before psychologies of money arose. And I think had a huge part in that transformation that occurred, where the best of the financial world were seeing quite clearly what's important here is the client. Their money, yeah, you want to take care of it and all that, but what's important is the client. And I want my relationship with the client to be absolutely phenomenal, the best it can possibly be as someone who has some wisdom around money, regardless of whether that person becomes a client or not. And I think one of the things that most people in the life planning movement have felt is that what gives them great reward is delivering their clients into experiences of freedom. Now that's another topic. I'm going to come to that topic later, but I want to just say a little bit more about the experiential nature of the workshop, and why I think it's why I did it. And one of the things that happened, as I said, the financial world got very excited about it. So what happened was I ended up at the end of one of my first workshops, which had a huge number of people for me. It was like 100 people at the workshop. And one of the people came up and said, George, you're dressed very natural and all that, but you really need, if you're going to deliver to a financial audience, you ought to have an Armani suit. And I thought, oh my God, that is so far from who I am. But I thought, okay, maybe I'm stretching myself here, and maybe that's what the point is. So I actually went out and bought a suit that actually has some of the kind of natural feel. It's more of a brownish, grayish suit than the black Armani suit that you think of. And I wore this suit to every workshop that I gave for 20 years or so. It's just amazing. And but it lasted that long. But it was that was the only time I wore it, right? Was for the workshop. So in the workshop, it was exciting to figure out how to give a person, a participant, an experience of their attachment to their ideas about money, because that's where we end up being in trouble. And then to actually challenge them to experience the emotional challenges of those experiences. And through that piece of working with the brain, working with the heart, delivering some emotional intelligence in the stage we call understanding. Obviously, a huge amount of what we do in this work is understanding the vision, and that vision of who we're meant to be as part of knowledge. And then to give the vitality of vigor, and then the sweet elements of vision and aloha, of generosity and seeing what's needed in your community at the end of the workshop. Really wonderful. And I think the most wonderful thing, in the early days, we would sing at the end a great, song of gathering. And it was just wonderful feeling the connectedness of people around money. I remember giving the workshop, I gave it in the inner city in New York City. And that workshop it was a small workshop, and half the people had no money at all. And the other half the people were children of inherited wealth, had lots of money. And it was extraordinary facilitating the stories between these two groups, and seeing that in each group, the thought processes created in childhood meant that the adults were still clinging in some way to thoughts and ideas around money, and still facilitating in that way internally the pain that came with those stories. So it's a wonderful workshop. I feel very lucky. I still participate a bit occasionally, but have a team of trainers at this point. Just great trainers, and from all over the world. So enjoy. Thanks. Bye-bye.